Welcome to the Wolverine Digest podcast, the best spot for objective and authentic coverage of Michigan athletics. If you want open dialogue, honest opinions, and in-depth coverage of the maize and blue, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Brandon Brown, joined as always by Chris Breiler.
I was going to start by saying go blue.
Welcome to the pod. Welcome to the live stream. It's Monday night. 7:01.
I'm surprised we're not coming in here with like breaking, dramatic news, music. To me, that I feel like it feels like a bombshell. It feels bombshell worthy.
So if you're not quite sure what Chris is referring to, and I didn't do this because we were about to go live, but I just tweeted out that I think the odds have shifted ever so slightly to Jim Harbaugh being more likely as the Raiders head coach next year versus Michigan's. And that's the first time that I've said that all week long. We're past a week now, 2 weeks, whatever it's been at this point. Day 16 if you're following John Bacon's countdown. Day 16, or we still know nothing.
Or day 44 since the Big Ten championship game.
Say that thing that you texted me yesterday, because that is a way to put this into perspective where this could have all been avoided.
Right, and I think clearly after Jim Harbaugh and Michigan beat Ohio State, I think things felt pretty good about having him come back, and then Michigan goes and wins a Big Ten championship convincingly. And I think at that point, if two sides want to be together, you're probably getting hard at work, to make it happen because everything's going the way you want it to go. Well, the Big Ten championship game was 44 days ago.
Getting hard at work?
Getting hard at work.
Getting hard to work?
Getting hard to work.
Maybe getting hard at work. We're going to have to drop. Drop that one right there.
Around getting hard at work. Getting hard at work, taking care of business.
Are we talking about Urban Meyer here or Mark Clifford or is this Harbaugh?
Point being, the Big Ten championship game was 44 days ago, if my math is correct. And to me, there's been plenty of time for this thing to just get done. And so I just think my heart and my gut still tells me that Jim Harbaugh comes back in 2022. But at the same time, you just look at, here we are again. Now it's Monday evening. And I saw John Bacon tweet it out day 16 or whatever it is. And my response was, this can't possibly go on for another week. Can it? Can this really go on for another week? And it seems to just, the can continues to be kicked down the road. And there has to be a reason why.
Yeah, the reason why I think that now today, because I haven't thought that at all. I thought, okay, Jim Harbaugh's waiting to see what the Raiders are going to do. They're going to interview multiple people, and maybe it's Jim Harbaugh, maybe it's not. Even if Jim Harbaugh is their number one choice, they have to make him an offer, and he has to accept. I do believe he's happy at Michigan. He obviously just had the best season of his career by a mile. He likes the idea of his family being close. He likes the idea of raising his kids in Ann Arbor. Mrs. Harbaugh, Sarah Harbaugh, isn't exactly infatuated with being in Ann Arbor. She's always liked the idea of going back out west. But now the Raiders have fired Mike Mayock. So that's pretty much a given, in my opinion, that Rich Bisaccia is not going to be retained as the head coach. And I think if he was going to be retained as the head coach, you just say that he is. He's the interim head coach right now. He just coached them to a very successful second half of the NFL season. They made it to the playoffs. They did get beat, but by all accounts, the players like him. The other staff members like him. If he's going to be your head coach and you're going to remove the interim tag, then you just do it. You don't really need any true formalities. You don't even necessarily have to have the contract completely written up. If you know that's going to be your guy, you can tweet you can put out a release, you can tweet it, you can email it, whatever, as soon as that playoff game is over and say, we've decided to move forward with Rich Bisaccia. That's all it would take. And the fact that that hasn't happened and we're now here at Monday night and now they're also getting rid of Mike Mayock, that tells me that there's a big shakeup ready to come. And we know for a fact that Jim Harbaugh is on that list. Now, that still doesn't mean that he's their number 1, 2, and 3 option and that they have an offer drafted up that he's going to accept without question. I just think that dominoes are falling and balls are rolling in the direction of Jim Harbaugh being the head coach for the Raiders next year. I didn't think that even an hour ago. I was still in the same boat as, yeah, he's going to get a look. There's going to be this, there's going to be that. But I think the easiest and most likely path is still back to Ann Arbor next year. I've changed my mind on that in the past half an hour to an hour when I found out that Mike Mayock was removed. And that, again, yeah, we're still sitting here on Monday night and nothing's been announced from either side, and there's definitely mutual interest. I don't know how people can't see that at this point. People that are still thinking people talking about this are just doing it for attention or just doing it for clicks or have no idea what they're talking about. It's actually the opposite. Like, those people have no idea what they're talking about, and they're not paying attention, and they're just angry and upset and emotional, and they don't want what's happening to be happening. That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. If Jim, a lot of people think that Jim at some point wants to go back to the NFL, whether it's this year, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, whatever. They think that is on Jim Harbaugh's agenda at some point in the future. The Las Vegas job is a pretty damn good job. And any coach who ends up taking that head coaching position is likely going to have a ton of perks that come along with it. And so if you are somebody that has intentions on going back to the NFL and this job is available, and you've got an owner that's willing to throw the bag at you and give you, a stake in certain things, it just seems like you would want to listen and you would want to have that discussion. And again, we're not privy to those conversations, but if you just look at the way things are playing out, that seems like more of a reality than Michigan and Harbaugh have been sitting on a done deal for the last 2 weeks because Jim's just doing other things. You know what I mean? Like, that to me seems so far-fetched that, like, it's already done. They're just kind of busy doing some other shit. It's like, well, this is a big deal. And clearly it's become, a big topic of conversation. It's sprung into the national discussion about where he might go. And I just think that it would do everybody some good to get some finality here. And obviously now that the Raider season is over, I think I can't see it going beyond this week. It wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah. And look, I'm not saying like 95% he's gone. I just think that the Raiders situation got much, much, much more real in the last hour because of the moving on from Mike Mayock, and because it's apparent now that they have a plan in place, and I firmly expect Jim Harbaugh to be part of that plan. I don't mean it in a sense I firmly believe that they are going to hire Jim Harbaugh within the next 2 days. I just think he's definitely going to be a part of their discussion. He's definitely going to be a part of their interview process, and he's definitely one of the top candidates to take that job. And look, man, if you step outside of the Michigan media market for 1 minute and look at what everybody else is saying and what the Raiders fans are saying and what a lot of people are saying, they really want Jim Harbaugh to be the next head coach of the Raiders. Like, that's a pretty widespread opinion for people outside of the Ann Arbor area who are only getting their information from this tight little bubble here in Southeast Michigan.
Well, here's the thing, and Josh Pickens from the Facebook page, he asked, and we talked about this. We had a guest. We had a guest on a couple shows ago, and why would a new defensive line coach want to leave someplace like Notre Dame and come to Michigan if there was a chance that Harbaugh wouldn't be there? And I think he addressed that directly, and it makes sense for Elston from a personal standpoint. He's got ties there, good place for his family, and it seems like, and I think we've talked about this before, that even if Jim Harbaugh moves on at this point, the most likely scenario is that you'll just see a shift of all the pieces already there. So you'll see maybe Mike Hart get promoted, Josh Gaddis, you'll see something like that. But the group that's there will stay there, is my point. I don't think they're going to bring in a new head coach and an entirely new staff. So for him, it probably seemed like a good move. And I'm sure that if there were questions about Harbaugh's future, we don't know that he didn't get some assurances in terms of what his deal was going to be. And so I'm sure those discussions already took place.
Yeah, there is, unless you were sitting in the room with Jim Harbaugh and Mike Elston, you have no idea what was said between those two guys. And so this whole narrative that, like, Jim Harbaugh told Mike Elston he was going to be there, he's telling all of his players and recruits that he's coming back. I got news for you. I talked to a couple players yesterday. They have heard 0 words from Jim Harbaugh that he's coming back. Now, that doesn't mean he hasn't told some. Maybe he has. I'm sure it's been talked about or addressed a little bit on some level. But I know for a fact that not every player on that team has been told personally by Jim Harbaugh that he is returning to Michigan next year. Fact. That's a fact. Now, that doesn't mean he's not coming back. That doesn't mean he is coming back. But I'm saying these narratives that are just being accepted as gospel are not that. Mike Elston is a Michigan alum. He's been passed over multiple times for different positions at Notre Dame. That tends to rub a dude the wrong way a little bit after 12 years. He didn't want to go to Baton Rouge with Brian Kelly, but coming back to Ann Arbor was very appealing to him. He comes back to Ann Arbor. He's betting on himself a little bit. Whether it's Jim Harbaugh, whether it's Mike Hart, whether it's Josh Gaddis, whether it's some other coach that gets hired from somewhere else, there's a pretty good chance Mike Elston is retained. He's got a great reputation. He's from the state. He's a Michigan alum. He's a good recruiter. He's a great coach. There's a pretty good chance he's going to keep his job regardless of what happens. Not for sure, but like he's pretty confident in that. I'm certain of it. So there's a lot of reasons why he would take that job based on what was going on with him at Notre Dame and based on all the reasons why Michigan makes sense. Brian said it when we had him on. That's probably the only job in America he would have left Notre Dame for. That's the only one he had higher on his list is Michigan. It's where he played. It's nostalgic. That's where he got his start. So that's where he goes back to. So
I think Cody Engel from the Facebook page makes a good point. You know, Brian Kelly, his coaching staff was out on the recruiting trail when Brian Kelly signed a new deal to be LSU's head coach. A lot of those, I'm pretty sure a lot of the assistants found out, you know, through their cell phone or through Twitter or whatever it was while they were out on the recruiting trail. Like that was part of the thing. Like they had no idea they were out there recruiting and then they get left high and dry like that. So the idea that because
one of the Notre Dame coaches, I can't remember which one it was, talked about it or tweeted about it or something, literally was in a kid's living room, walked outside and looked at his phone and saw that Brian Kelly was going to LSU.
Right.
Now, Jim Harbaugh is not Brian Kelly.
Correct.
But guys,
it's not like you don't see example. I mean, Mel Tucker is another example. The guy tweets out, "This is my home," or "I'm not leaving," or "Let's get to," or whatever it is. And then 24 hours later, he's gone.
Yeah.
Like it just, it happens. It happens.
I know you're like diehard Michigan fans and you bleed blue and you wake up on Saturdays and it's maize and blue everywhere all day, but you're not coaching them. This is a business. It's cutthroat. There's a lot of things that go into making these decisions. I do think that Jim Harbaugh would like to stay at Michigan. I think that would be totally fine with him and his family. A lot of his family wants that. But the fact that this is still out there, still alive, and now some different things are in place and some different things are moving with the Raiders, I don't know how you can't just look at what's happening and realize that this is real. And, Jim Harbaugh might end up staying. We were talking about it, dude, right when we were about to go live. Chris said it'll probably be right in the middle of our conversation. We'll get a tweet or a release from Michigan. Jim Harbaugh has signed his extension. And that might happen. Dude, if he finds out for 1 second that he's not being considered by the Raiders anymore, it's over. That's it. Like, the Raiders could seriously pull the plug on this whole thing in 1 second. Word could get to Harbaugh. It's done. It's squashed. It's over. He's back at Michigan, and that's the deal. But that hasn't happened yet. And the fact that hasn't happened yet this long after all of this stuff there's been multiple ample opportunities for all of this to be put to bed, and it hasn't been. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, why I'm saying this whole thing is real. And like I said, until about an hour ago, I still was thinking the most likely scenario was Harbaugh back at Michigan, but now I think the Raiders actually might have pulled in front by just a little bit.
Yeah.
I told you that. You said it was kind of bombshelly, but it makes sense, does it not?
But it's made sense, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like it's made sense. And I said it earlier today. I think the longer it goes on, the less likely it is that he returns. And, I don't know. Again, I think I expect something to be done this week. And my gut still tells me that he's back in Ann Arbor coaching. But I would say for anybody out there that still maintains that Las Vegas isn't a legitimate landing spot or wasn't a legitimate landing spot as of, very recent, I just think you're kidding yourself, because it doesn't drag out this long. You don't get to this point in mid to late January if two sides are committed and want to get the deal done. And yeah, the coach for free thing, I mean, come on, guys.
Then sign the deal.
Right.
Then sign the extension. That apparently has been done for weeks now. If you listen to some insiders, that deal's been done, bro. It's done. It's ready for him to sign it.
Wait, why wasn't it? Why wasn't it because he had a scheduled vacation or a scheduled break? I heard.
Oh no, who knows? Yeah, Adam, that's part of I'm not sure. I don't know if Jim Harbaugh wants general manager duties or if he just wants to be on the same page with whoever the general manager might be. Now both of those are options because Mayock is gone. That's why that becomes much more of a real conversation. When Mayock is still there and his boy was Gruden and they had their whole thing working and then Gruden gets canned, you're like, well, what does Mike Mayock think of Jim Harbaugh? Does he want to go in that direction? What's that going to look like? Now he's gone. And all of that stuff is actually on the table now. Could Jim Harbaugh get some general manager duties? Could he link up with the right guy that likes him a lot and they get along and they can move in there together and start building that thing how they want? Listen, Corey, this is a very, very simple concept. Jim Harbaugh is Michigan's head coach as of today. Think about this. What would be the alternative? He's just sitting around doing nothing. He's not recruiting. He's not making phone calls. He's not sending his guys out on the road. He's not hiring new coaches when there's openings. He's just sitting around doing nothing. Well, because that the NFL is a possibility.
Right.
He's a smart dude, man. He knows that coming back to Michigan is possible. So he's going to do his job so that if he does come back to Michigan, he didn't just screw himself over for 2.5, 3 weeks.
But that's the case, even if his heart, if Harbaugh's heart is 100% with Las Vegas, that doesn't mean that Vegas feels the same way or that they're going to work on Jim Harbaugh's timeline. And so regardless of how he feels about the opportunity in Las Vegas, there is still a very real possibility that he's going to be back in Ann Arbor. And if he's back there, why would he want to screw himself by taking his foot off the gas for 2 weeks while he decides to figure it out? I've worked at jobs before where I've started looking at other jobs. And I can tell you, for whatever span that was, I didn't just like kick my feet up and not show up or not do a damn thing because I was just kind of shopping around and seeing what else would be available. So, I mean, yeah, there's a good chance that he might come back. There's a chance he might not. But at the end of the day, I think he still cares about the Michigan football program. And I think he still wants to leave it in a better place than what he found it. And I think if he does leave, and we talked about this prior to hopping on, I think if he leaves after this season, I think you can confidently say that he did what he came here to do. He put the program in a better spot than it was before he found it. And I would be excited about the future of the program either way. So again, for people that are confused about why he continues to work at Michigan because he's still employed at Michigan. He's still under contract at Michigan, and that is still his job. Even if he is entertaining the possibility he might go elsewhere, he still has a job to do.
Just think about how crazy the alternative would be. He's just doing nothing. The dead period ended.
You imagine Ward walking by his office. Harbaugh's just got his feet kicked up.
Oh, he's not even there. He's just at home, was playing Golden Tee. I'm like, dude, what? He's doing his job because there's a chance he's going to be the head coach at Michigan still next year. So when the recruiting period opens back up, think about it. Like, he's the boss. I don't know how much, like, everybody knows what jobs they have and what their responsibilities are, but I don't think Sharon Moore or Mike Hart or any of these assistant coaches are just getting up and going out on the road unless Harbaugh is like on board with it. So what? Jim Harbaugh is going to sit back and not do any work and also have like 10 to 25 other people not do anything either? Like, you're muted, dude.
I think this is a good question because we've done a lot of talking about, whether or not he's going to come back. But Gary Klein says if he does leave at this point, he leaves the program in a bad spot. Let me ask you, if he does ultimately decide over the next week, we get news that Jim Harbaugh is going to Vegas. Is he leaving the program in a bad spot at this point?
No. It's in the best spot it's been in since he's been here.
Right.
They have more momentum in every area of football, of college football, than they've ever had. For one, well, I mean, I guess they lost in the playoff. I mean, like, only one team in the playoff gets to finish on a win. That's Georgia. But this wasn't like losing a random ass bowl game to Florida State. They were in the college football playoff and they lost to the national title champion. They pounded Iowa in the Big Ten championship. They drilled Ohio State in this regular season finale. They rode a wave of momentum that they have never rode since Jim Harbaugh has been at Michigan. So, they're already, like, they brought in multiple high profile recruits over this past weekend and did a really good job there. The program's in the best spot it's ever been in under Jim Harbaugh, period. It's not even close. So, yeah, I don't know how anybody could say that it would put them in a bad spot.
And this idea that, Michigan would take a step back, or they would have to settle, or the new coach wouldn't be as good, whether it comes from somebody internally or Michigan goes out and tries to find a younger great mind in the college football game. I don't know what their process would be, but I could tell you that the University of Michigan, as it stands now, that head coaching position, if it becomes vacant, would be one of the top jobs available in the entire country. I mean, I think that there would be no shortage of qualified candidates that would be up for that position. And so I look at it, and I said this the other day, I look at whatever happens here, I think is a win-win. If he comes back, then Michigan gets to continue the momentum that he's built there over the last, 7 years. If he leaves, I think that this program sort of can take a step into, the future of college football and whatever that might look like. That's how I view it. I kind of view Jim Harbaugh as the bridge, between the gap from where we were to where this program needs to be.
Yeah, I tweeted out when they hired Mike Elston that's a pretty good sign that Jim Harbaugh is staying. I didn't think it was a guarantee by any stretch, but yeah, I mean, like if you're making a big hire like that and a guy like that wants to come, that's a pretty good endorsement. Then you read a little bit more about what Mike Elston's all about. You consider the fact that he's alum. We talked to Brian, who shed a lot of light on the situation about what was going on with him at Notre Dame and how he keeps getting passed up for jobs. He thought maybe he should have been the head coach, not Marcus Freeman. He's never even been promoted to be the defensive coordinator there. He was still a D-line coach after all those years of being loyal to Brian Kelly. So, dude, that rubs you the wrong way a little bit. And like Brian said, again, the only place in the world he would have left Notre Dame for was Michigan. He had a chance to go to LSU with Brian Kelly for a big time pay raise, and he didn't go. And so now he's at Michigan, and I'm sure he's going to have a very hefty contract there. And I mean, there's a lot, I know a lot of people want to hang on that one development as the sole reason why Jim Harbaugh is coming back. But again, unless you were in that room or on the phone during that conversation, there's no way you can say that he 100% assured Mike Elston that he would be the coach at Michigan next year. And again, I don't think Jim Harbaugh is a liar, but I also don't we need to stop acting like these coaches are incapable of just, pacifying the masses for a little while, because it happens every single year, very publicly, very openly. And the next day, people don't even care about it. Like you mentioned Mel Tucker, you mentioned, Nick Saban in the past, you mentioned other coaches who have said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. And literally the next day they're gone. Brian Kelly, while his coaches are out on the road recruit, it just happens that way, man. It really does. It just happens that way.
And again, Cody with a pretty strong comment. All the people in the comments that say, this LOL, he's not leaving and he's a lifer or whatever. Okay, why not say it? Just why not say why hasn't he said it? Why hasn't he signed something? Why isn't there a deal? He used to be
really active on Twitter. It wouldn't take him but 2 seconds to fire off a tweet. Even if the contract wasn't signed, even if it wasn't
here to stay,
he could just be like, I'm not leaving.
What did he say that one year? He said something about jive turkeys and trying to whatever. And there's none of that this time.
Where are those comments right now? They're not out there because this is real. This is real. The interest with the Raiders is mutual in both directions.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect time. His stock is as high as it's ever been, and it's probably not going to get any higher. And, he's getting close to 60 years old. I don't know, man. If you just want to laugh about it and you look, he might be back at Michigan. And at that point, it's not about, and if he does leave, I'm not going to sit here and say, told you so. That's not what this is about. But I don't know how you can look at everything that's happening and watch all the developments from the outside and not at least tell yourself all right, him leaving is possible. At this point, it's possible.
Which is all we're
take a job with the Raiders.
All we're saying is
that's it, man. That's all.
It's not even a guarantee, but at this point, you have to admit that it is a possibility. And with the Raiders making the move they made today, that would suggest that it's even a stronger possibility.
Jim Harbaugh does not give a rat's ass about the news cycle. As a member of the media, I can confirm he closes everything. He doesn't let us talk to anybody. He doesn't give any information out. He doesn't release a depth chart. He doesn't talk about injuries. He doesn't care about the news cycle, at all. And Michigan doesn't need drummed up drama to be in the news cycle. They just won they just played in the college football playoff and won the Big Ten. They're fine. People are talking about Michigan every single year because it's Michigan, because they're a big time program. Jim Harbaugh does not need to run around and do this stuff to try to drum up attention.
And this isn't the kind of the attention you want to drum up for your program anyway.
That's
if you're
part
staying,
of it too. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, so Corey, there's another question. I mean, like, what's the percentage of the fan base that is so upset at the fact that not that he might stay, but like, I don't know, Chris, we kind of addressed it this way before. Like, what's the percentage of the fan base that would be like pissed off if he left? And how and why?
You know what? I still think the majority of the fan base would be pissed off if he left after this season, because I think the majority of it, the majority of them are going to view it as, you know, spend all this time trying to get Michigan to this point, and you go through all of those difficult years and what 2016 was like, and trouble with the snap, and all of these painful things that Michigan fans went through to get to this point where you're on the doorstep of a national championship. And I think a lot of them would feel, quite frankly, insulted that he would decide to bail now when things are finally up and running, and you know, it's finally been built into. I think Ronnie Bell said it, that this was what Jim Harbaugh had been working towards the entire time he had been at Michigan. So to up and leave now, it just doesn't make sense unless you take the emotion out of it and you look at it purely from like a business standpoint and what makes sense.
I mean, you know, we can go back and pull the quotes, you know, when he was the head coach at Stanford, and he kind of trashed Michigan and talked about their academics and how they do. Guess what? He's the coach at Michigan now, right? Like, that's, people say things in interviews, in private conversations, in the public eye.
We've talked about ball hair on here. People say things.
I mean, like, nothing that is ever said is like completely binding and concrete. Here's another example. I have watched pretty terrible performances by Michigan quarterbacks before, and then listened to Jim Harbaugh after the game say it was a phenomenal game by him. No, it wasn't. Why are you going to stand up there and say that? Don't lie to us. You don't have to do that. And we talked about that. But so, like, my point is that, you know, he can say a lot of different things, and then things play out in a very different way. And again, this year is different. Every other year, I've even been pretty adamant. Like, dude, he's not leaving. We haven't heard anything about anything that he's looking to leave, or that he's, you know, checking people's interest, or that he's even got, you know, the slightest inkling to go back to the NFL. Last year, he did. The NFL didn't want him. This year, the interest is real again. And there's at least one team out there that has interest in him as well, and that's the Raiders. So, look, there's a lot of jobs open right now, and actually quite a few of them make sense for Jim Harbaugh. If you could make a list of 5 jobs that would make sense for Jim Harbaugh to leave and take, there's like 3 of them open right now: the Bears, the Raiders, and the Dolphins. I haven't heard anything about the Dolphins. Well, I mean, Stephen Ross kind of came out and said they weren't going to do that. I think if he showed that he was 100% going back to the NFL, Ross might actually get involved. We'll let that happen if it happens. And then the other one is the Bears. Haven't heard anything about the Bears wanting him at all, but I've heard a lot about the Raiders wanting him from all sides, from people who cover the Raiders, from people who work in the athletic department, from people on the team, I mean, it's the smoke is real. That doesn't mean he's leaving, but you can't also just laugh at that notion and say, he's coming back, guys. Stop with this. You're not paying attention. You're just not. And you just don't want it to happen. That's all it is. And so it is a fun thing to talk about. I saw, I don't know how to say his name, G exclamation point Otts. Not really sure what that means.
No, just don't give.
No, but he said a lot of dumb shit, but he did say it is a fun topic to discuss. It absolutely is. What else is there right now? You want to talk about 7-7 Michigan basketball? We can do that. We're going to do it a little bit, but like, come on, man. It's Jim Harbaugh, man. It's the topic of discussion in a lot of football circles, not just at U of M, NFL, college, across the country. It's a big topic. And so we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we weren't talking about what we thought, what we're hearing, what we think is going to happen. I don't have any problem putting my name out there and saying what I think is going to happen. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Dude, nobody's 100% right all the time in this industry. And if they are, they're doing it in a shady way that you shouldn't be paying attention to.
Here's what I'll say. If this goes for another week get to the end of the week here. I would say at that point, anybody who's still holding on to this belief that this is a done deal, like if we go another week and we don't get some resolution here, I can't imagine that any of those people will be left. Like there is literally no incentive for this to continue if Michigan has presented a deal to Jim Harbaugh and Harbaugh likes the deal. I mean, that's it. Like the deal would just be done.
Keep talking for a minute, Chris. I gotta do something real quick.
So
go on a rant. You got a rant?
Well, no, I don't. Well, the rant about the contract, I guess, is where we would go. I just, I look at the people in the comment section, and I'm sure we're going to talk about Schlissel later in the show here. I saw somebody point out the emails that came out the other night, which is, that'll be a topic that we talk about. But again, you go back to all the speculation that you see out there from different sites. I think it really just boils down to the fact that if two sides are motivated enough to get a deal done, they'll get the deal done. And again, when Michigan won the Big Ten championship 44 days ago, I've got to assume that the University of Michigan at that point knew that we want this guy back. This guy's done what we've asked him to do. They beat Ohio. They just won a Big Ten championship. This thing looks like it's going where it needs to go. Let's make sure we get him back before it even gets to the point where NFL teams are going to be coming, because we know they are, So I just think the longer this drags on, the more it seems like less likely he's going to come back.
Yeah, there is that too. It's just the sheer every passing day, you just start to wonder, like, what is the deal? Just be done with it already. It's clear he's waiting. He'll find out if the deal that he's going to get, if he even gets one. Let me back up. He'll find out if he's going to get a deal from the Raiders. He'll find out if that deal is good enough, and then he'll make a decision.
Because he's got a pretty sweet deal at the University of Michigan. I think, there's no guarantee that Las Vegas is going to give Harbaugh everything that he wants. And we talked about this on one of our previous shows. Jim Harbaugh has a loyalty within the Michigan fan base that he will never have anywhere else outside of the state of Michigan. And
so we talked about that. He could go like murder puppies on the 50-yard line.
Correct.
Like,
and they're going to be like, well, there's a reason why, he's, 2 steps ahead or playing chess or whatever. The bottom line is that's a difficult thing to leave when you've got that kind of love and that kind of support. There's another element to that. So I just think there's no guarantee that Las Vegas is going to give him a deal he wants. There's no guarantee that Las Vegas wants him as bad as he might want them. But every day that this continues on, it looks more and more likely that something real is there and that he could actually make the move at this point.
Yeah. And Jason, this is an interesting angle too, because this isn't your typical, like, there's a job opening because you shit canned your coach after a terrible season. The Raiders would not have fired Bisaccia because he didn't do anything to get fired. He took over a terrible situation, salvaged it, and got them to the playoffs as the special teams coordinator and associate head coach, who then became the interim head coach. So this is not a situation where he's fired at the end of the year. He kind of just slinks back to his original position. If a new coach comes in, I'm keeping Rich Bisaccia. I'm going to let him be my special teams coordinator and maybe associate head coach and have him be part of the, galvanizing of bringing in a new staff. I mean, that would be something I would seriously consider if I was the new head coach of the Raiders. So no, they're not going to fire him. There's no reason to fire Rich Bisaccia because he was just promoted from within to help get you through the season, and he did a pretty good job. In fact, I've said this also from, when this whole thing became a talking point. If I was the Raiders, I would probably just remove the interim tag and keep it moving with Bisaccia. He did a really good job. The players seem to like him, and the rest of the staff seems to like him. Chris thinks he kind of looks like a Gump on the sideline. I don't disagree. The other day, he's got like his hands in his pocket and he's just kind of walking around. I'm like, I don't think Jim Harbaugh would ever use the front pocket on a hoodie.
He doesn't strike me as like the head coach, like, the guy who just looks like the
alpha.
General, right out there pacing the sideline. The guy that you want as the face of your franchise. He might be a phenomenal coach. The players might love him, but to me, he doesn't scream, face of a franchise, especially a franchise like the Raiders. Again, if I wasn't a fan, if I wasn't a Michigan fan, if I'm looking at it purely from the outside looking in, to me, Jim Harbaugh and Las Vegas, like those two worlds colliding that would be must-see television, like that would be pretty cool. And so I hope he comes back as a fan of Michigan. I'd like to see them continue to to build on and improve on what they did in 2021. It was obviously spectacular. But if he does leave, I'm not one of those people that are going to feel, bitter because, he's leaving Michigan high and dry. I think he's got this program to a pretty good point. And if he decides to take his talents elsewhere, I would fully support him.
Yeah, somebody tweeted at me when I responded to me when I tweeted out that I think the odds have shifted a little bit, and somebody said, "Well, you might finally get your wish." It's not that, dude. I've explained this before too. I never really wished for Jim Harbaugh to be fired. I didn't dislike him as a person. It wasn't personal or emotional. I just simply thought after 6 years on the job, he fell too short of what he was expected to do. That's really all it was. Now, after year 7, because I just heard the way you worded it, Chris. You said you hope he's back. I'm kind of indifferent. I'll be completely honest. I'm kind of indifferent. He showed me last year that that he's capable of many things that I didn't think he was capable of. I didn't think he was going to beat Ohio State. Once they beat Ohio State, I did think they were going to kill Iowa. I did think that. But I still wonder, I don't know. I think long term, I wonder how many more times we're going to see what we saw this past season. I think everybody's kind of wondering that. So I'm curious. I'm curious to see if he can keep it rolling and if he can replicate what he did in 2021. But I definitely don't wish that he's fired. And I don't even think that he's, that he should be moved on from at this point. After the 2021 season, all of those narratives changed. All the reasons that I used to say he wasn't doing a good job, he pretty much did all of those things. He beat Ohio State. He won the Big Ten, made it to the playoff. I mean, all the things that I thought he was brought to Michigan to do in the first place, he finally did. It took him 7 years. Most coaches don't get that long, and he wouldn't have got that long if he wasn't a former player. That's the facts. Yeah. But to say that I wish that he might actually move on, I don't. I really don't want that to happen anymore, but I still think it's a very real possibility. And there's still some people, coming in saying you guys are trash. He's not leaving. He's staying forever. How can you say that? I don't know how you can say that. Even if he comes back, I don't know how you can say that. Right? Like that, you've got to be thinking that way.
Because it goes back to that group of people we were talking about. There is a group of people in this fan base, and it is a sizable group, that no matter what happens, I mean, Jim Harbaugh will never do any wrong. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? That's loyalty you can't buy. And so, like I said, there's another pretty strong reason why I think he might come back, because he's sure as hell not going to get that kind of loyalty in Vegas or Chicago or Miami or anywhere else he might go.
But he's an NFL guy. He knows that.
He knows. And I don't think at the end of the day, I don't think he
cares either.
I think that guy operates on a whole different level.
Well, let me ask you about that. Because you've brought it up a couple times, and I don't disagree, but how big of a factor do you think something like that is? The fact that I don't know what the number is. It might be 50%. It might be 50% of the Michigan fan base would say, you just got to give him one more year, even if he went 0-12.
Yep.
Seriously, there's a chunk of the fan base that would sign Jim Harbaugh to a lifelong deal right now, even if he said, I'll be the coach, but I'm never coming to the games. They would still hire him.
Right.
That's how crazy some of the fan base is. So let me ask you that question. How much of a factor do you think it is for Jim Harbaugh that he has that kind of support from some of the people, not only in the fan base, but on the board of regents and in the donor system as well?
It's huge. It's huge.
And
so? I go back to that press conference.
You just said he operates on a different wavelength.
He does, but he also understands the business side of things. And he said it in one of his press conferences towards the end of the year where, I think the question was about the quarterback position. And he said, you lease the position at best. And he said, even with my position as head coach, you lease the position at best. I think he gets how fragile this industry is and how quickly things can change. Look at what he went through at the University of Michigan. This guy went from about as low as it can possibly get in 2020 to now he's a hot commodity again. And pretty much everybody wants him to stay at Michigan. And so I think in terms of if you can get job security in this industry, you want that. And he clearly has a lot of it at the University of Michigan, more job security here than he's going to have anywhere else. And to me, if you want to settle down, if you really want to put down some roots and you want your family, you want your family to grow in an area, job security counts. That matters.
not trying to ignore you, but I mean, texts are flying in, man. I don't know. Can I read some of these?
Sure.
People that I talk to that are connected, that know people in the athletic department, that have sources better than mine directly, already talking about, because a lot of people thought that if Jim Harbaugh did leave, that the hire would be from within, that they would promote from within. It'd be Gaddis or it'd be Hart or it'd be somebody, and they would just kind of put a Band-Aid on things for the year. But somebody that's very informed said that that's not the case, that there would be a national search, and that Bill O'Brien has already been made aware. I don't like that at all, but that is already something that's been brought to his attention. So
honestly,
again,
just the thought of that makes me sick
I know.
to my stomach.
I know. I don't want that either. But okay, so apparently Stephen Ross is a big supporter of Bill O'Brien, and that carries weight in Ann Arbor, which it should. But I don't like that idea. But the point is that this is being talked about. There are contingency plans in place. There are real discussions being had in case Jim Harbaugh ends up leaving Michigan to take a job with the Raiders. I believe that to be 100% factual. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe what I say. You don't have to believe that I talk to people in the know. I do. But that's what it is. That's what it is. Now, all that, I'll say all that, and I'll immediately follow it up with Jim Harbaugh could sign an extension to be at Michigan tomorrow. He could do that. He absolutely could do that. But again, the Mike Mayock firing, I think, is a big deal in terms of pairing this thing up the way that they want to at the Raiders. And I think Jim Harbaugh is going to factor into that in a massive way. That's what I think.
And you know what I think? I think a lot of the people out there, a lot of readers, a lot of people on social media were told over a week ago that the deal was done. And at this point, you've got to start asking yourself, why has nothing been reported? Where is the report? Where is the announcement? And again, it's common sense, man.
Yeah. I don't know. That's an interesting thing Bill Gaines says right there. If Harbaugh had this kind of year, I'll put it up. If Harbaugh had this kind of year in, year 4 or year 5, the fan base would be in a different spot and be a lot less conflicted. I think there's no question. You beat Ohio State and win a Big Ten title in year 3, 4, or 5 as opposed to 7. It changes everything. It changes the narrative in a massive way, because then after that, you've got chances to stack up another one or do it back to back, or whatever the case may be.
I mean, for me, I didn't hop off until 2018. I think was my breaking point. After the Ohio State game in 2018, I was like, I don't see any change, and it continued to get worse. And then 2019 got even worse against Ohio State, and it was like
2020.
All right, this is bad. And then 2020 was. But then you had, obviously the COVID was mixed into everything. So it was how much stock can you put into that? And I think, that scenario bought him some more time, because I don't think anybody was really taking what was happening during that season seriously. So, yeah, I mean, obviously if Jim Harbaugh gets it done in year 4, the conversation is totally different. But when you go that long, when you go 0-5 and what would have surely been 0-6 against the Buckeyes, and you don't make any trips to Indy, those criticisms are warranted, and that's just the way it is.
Mark. In year 2, Jim Harbaugh finished 3rd in the Sagarin rankings. Yeah, let me know where Michigan's got the Sagarin rankings posted around their building and how often they refer to it. Like, who? I mean, come on, man. The average fan is a meathead. Like, dude, if you're diving into the Sagarin rankings as the reason why you're like pumped about what Michigan football is doing, more power to you, dude. That's what I say about the Sagarin rankings. What are you doing to improve the Sagarin rankings today? Yeah, they don't have that sign hanging up anywhere in Schembechler. I mean, that's a new one. That is a new one right there.
Do we need to dive in? Look, it does kind of interact, or it intertwines here. So I think, do we need to talk about the impact of Schlissel's departure on whether or not Jim Harbaugh stays? I mean, do you think that abrupt departure, is going to, I guess, lead Harbaugh back to Ann Arbor more than it would have otherwise, or is this, going to have very little impact?
I mean, I'll refer to our boy Johnny U, man. He immediately came out and said this is a non-factor. And I think that you want to talk about the average fan. The average fans run with narratives about like Jim Harbaugh can't stand Schlissel and Schlissel hate. Like, dude, Schlissel didn't give a rat's ass about football, and that's part of an issue. I do think that the president of the University of Michigan has to be at least a little invested in what the football program is doing. He wasn't,
would say so.
but whether he stayed or whether he's gone or whether, like, I don't think it has any bearing on what Jim Harbaugh decides to do. Stay, go, Raiders, Michigan, Bears. I don't think it matters at all.
What do you think of those emails, though? Pretty salacious.
I mean,
Lonely.
Get you a Knish. I got a Knish.
We saw him down on the field in Miami. He had the top 2 buttons undone. He had the taco meat hanging out. He had the cocktail in his hand. He gave a speech down there. I got some photos of him. I mean, little did I know, I was photographing like a real G. I thought this guy was like lame. Look at this guy.
He's laying back like this, smoking a cigarette
Just
with his underwear on, dude, just getting it in. I actually like. So as far as like scandals go, it was pretty lame. If you read the actual emails and you go through, if you go through the emails and you look at what words were used, it was actually pretty tame. But you can't be the president of the University of Michigan using your work email to like shoot your shot with a subordinate. You just can't do that. It was just like, first of all, that dude's about as smart as they get. He's a virologist, right? He's a doctor. He was the president at U of M. Where did he learn how to run game?
Not very good at technology.
Yeah, what are you doing,
bro? Those guys typically struggle with the technology side of things.
What are you doing, man? You could learn from Tony on the corner better on how to get a little on the side, dude. You can't be sending emails from your umich.edu email. What is he doing, man?
They call that strange. Isn't that what they refer to?
He's trying to get some strange, but it wasn't some strange though. It was a very familiar.
It was some familiar
trim, dude. He's trying to really do it with. I mean, lonely, trying to get a pizza. I got a couple Knishes for you. I bet you got a Knish for somebody, Schlissel. Come on, dude. I don't understand that approach at all, man. I think
it worked. The thing is, it worked. Well,
I heard Jim Harbaugh actually sat down and talked with Schlissel right after it happened.
You addicted to sex? Sex addiction?
And he does, apparently. He does have that.
Okay, hold on a second. I don't want to go off on a tangent about this, but can I ask an honest question? Is there anybody that's not addicted to sex? I mean, I don't know that it's like an addiction, but like, is that really a thing? Like, some people like to smoke more cigarettes. Some people like to smoke a few cigarettes. Does that mean everybody's addicted, or I don't know. That's a bad example because
I think like a sex addiction means you're like not going to work and you can't pay your bills.
So you're in your bed crippled, just thinking about sex,
just trying to pipe all day, dude. That's all you want.
I thought it was like somebody who just goes out and they're having a lot of sex. And it's like, man, this guy's got a sex addiction.
The guy's doing it. I mean, that's what everybody's trying to do, really. You know,
I guess if you're crippled, I guess, and you can't get
so
out
somebody's
of bed.
throwing out a tweet there from Nick Baumgardner, who I respect fully in this industry. I'll put it up. Michigan and Jim Harbaugh have had productive talks on a new deal that has been made. At this point, it's about what Harbaugh wants to do. Yeah, that's exactly what we've been saying. Michigan wants Jim Harbaugh back. If he wanted to be back right now, he could be. That's
the
it.
Thing is, you don't have to be an insider to know that. All you got to do is look at the fact that it's been 44 days since Michigan won the Big Ten championship.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, this could have been something that.
This is not good for the, like, I get the whole, people wanting to run with this narrative about leverage, or he's wanting to keep Michigan in the spotlight. This is not a healthy look for the program. You don't want there to be some question lingering out there about the future of what your head coach is going to do. So, of course, the fact that there hasn't been an announcement yet and it is lingering should tell you there's a reason for that. It's not because there's some game being played behind the scenes. It's because Harbaugh's just wanting to hear probably what's available there. That's it.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like,
no,
I mean, like I said, his stock is high and, he's got opportunities and it's a pretty good one. So I don't know, man. I just think it's, like I said, it's pretty obvious at this point that he's waiting for something. Will it come? Will it be good enough if it does? Those I don't know. I mean, I think everybody's going to find that out at the same time. Everybody's going to find out whether or not the Raiders are going to make a formal offer. and if that formal offer is good enough at the same time, because that's not going to be a known thing until it's public information. There might be a little, you might get some stuff leaked here or there, like that happens. NFL guys are pretty plugged in. They've got their dudes in each organization. Like, Schefter gets stuff and Ian Rappaport, and these guys are plugged in. But yeah, that's going to be not until it's a known thing for everybody.
Okay, you know what? This is the last I'm going to address it. But the whole free working for free, there has never been and will never be a head coach at the pro or collegiate level willing to work for free. Now, I'm sure somebody could dig into some internet archives and find a situation where that's happened. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter that he said he'd be willing to work for free. He's not going to work for free at the University of Michigan. It's hyperbole. He needs money for himself. He needs money for his staff. He needs resources put in place. It is about money. He needs money. He's going to get a lot of it wherever he goes. But this, this whole working for free, man, I think people really got to get off of that. That was, that's like saying so hungry I could eat a cow or I could eat a horse.
I'm really going to do it.
I'm running an article. Jim Harbaugh ready to eat horse. Is that where we go with that?
Oh yeah. I just saw some. I'm kind of going through the tweets here. Like you can imagine what the replies are to my tweet that I sent off. They're pretty interesting. But somebody said you're just trying to put a hot take out there. Is this really a hot take? I don't think it's a hot take at all. I think it's a very realistic take that might end up happening by the end of the week. I don't know. I wasn't trying to make it a hot take. I just think that the Mayock situation is a really big deal in terms of what the Raiders are going to do and what it could mean for Jim Harbaugh. Look, I don't have a problem, dude. I wouldn't have tweeted it if I was worried about what people were going to say. I mean, I put it out there on purpose. I think that's what I think. Up until this point, I didn't think that. It changed with the Mayock situation. So there you go. I don't know. How much longer do we have to talk about this, man? Let's make a decision already.
Come on, Jim. For God's sakes.
Let's make a decision.
Dude's out going to hockey games, like sitting just chilling. He looks comfy out there. He looks relaxed. Nobody around him is relaxed. We're all waiting.
Yeah. Yeah, and in terms of the recruiting side of things, we'll talk about that for just a couple minutes. Michigan lost a commitment from Joel Starlings, which is actually kind of a big deal. I mean, you're talking about a 6'5", 310-pound defensive tackle who committed to Sean Nua. He tweeted out, given the developments with my future position coach, I'm going to open things back up. I don't know if he'll still be interested in Michigan or vice versa. Like Mike Elston's now the D-line coach, and he and Notre Dame did not offer Starlings, which you're talking about a big, talented kid at a Catholic school in Virginia. So if Notre Dame didn't offer him, kind of thinking that maybe Mike Elston doesn't like that kid, like him that much for whatever reason, doesn't like his tape or blah, blah, whatever. So I don't know if Michigan will be a part of what he's doing moving forward, but it is what it is. The very next day, they pick up a commitment from Andrew. I'm going to screw his name up, I'm sure. Rappel, however you say it. Pretty funny name, actually. Can't believe it's real. I think that's a made-up name. Somebody made that up at some point.
You accuse a lot of people of having made-up names around here.
Dude. Rappel,
that's a real last name, brother.
Rappel,
that's a real last name.
All right. Anyway,
long
talented kid. Talented kid. I looked at him on his huddle tape. You're talking about 6'4", 215 pounds. Looks like he reminds me of like a Luke Schoonmaker. He looks like a big, tall, long wide receiver who can run. There were some blocking plays in there, but you get the sense that he's not doing a whole lot of that in high school, because of his athleticism, his size, how he can run. And now you're starting to look at a tight end room that's been good and will remain good for quite a while here. With who Michigan's been able to bring in. Eric All, Luke Schoonmaker both coming back. Matthew Hibner on the roster. A couple good ones in Marlon Klein and Colston Loveland that just signed and will be on campus as freshmen in the fall. And now you've got this Rappel kid in the 23 class. So, and they're similar. A lot of them are like this 6'4", 6'5", 215, 220, can really run, look more like big wide receivers. And, that's the game nowadays. You're not looking for 270-pound guys to actually be an extra offensive lineman much anymore. But, Michigan's been able to employ a couple of them too. He first moved Joel Honigford to tight end. It looks like Jones I don't know where he'll be next year, but he wore number 80 and played jumbo tight end more than anything else this year. So kind of interesting how they're using the tight ends in that room, and they're doing a good job with it. So can't blame the kid. He had some big time offers. His final 7 was, let me pull that up real quick. His final 7 was Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Wake Forest, North Carolina, Boston College, and Wisconsin. Kids from Massachusetts. I don't know. Anytime Michigan can go toe-to-toe with and beat Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin, I think that's a pretty good pull and a nice win on the recruiting trail there. So that was coming out of this big weekend that they had. Pretty big event, getting kids back on campus, couple official visitors, a lot of 2023s and younger kids. So, again, Michigan's still out there doing a good job while Jim Harbaugh is under contract and is currently the head coach. I don't think that means he's 100% coming back. Like we talked about earlier, just doing his job. That's what you would expect of a guy in that position, right? He can't sit back and just chill. I don't know. I don't put a whole lot of stock in the fact that they're out there doing some stuff on the recruiting trail. And man, Michigan basketball, dude.
That's brutal. I'm honestly I'm avoiding it. I'm putting it off for as long as I possibly can, trying to, again, milk the teat of what's going on with the football program and the Jim Harbaugh situation, and make.
I gotta try to
we stay focused.
Massage the teat a little bit.
Massage the teat.
I'm gonna milk the football teat for whatever, because it's brutal. Watching the basketball program right now is brutal. And again, they have a lot of talent. Obviously, there were a lot of expectations for the young class that came in, but I think it proves that, talent is one thing, but chemistry and putting the right pieces in place, especially in the game of basketball, that's everything. And that program has had that for quite a while, and credit John Beilein for all of that. And I think right now, Juwan Howard's figuring out, he's trying to figure out his own path toward making that work. And it's not coming together as quickly as I think people had hoped.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they just lost by 15 against a good Illinois team on the road. They didn't have Hunter Dickinson. That's a really bad matchup for Michigan to not have Hunter Dickinson, because then Kofi Coburn can just go in the middle and pretty much do whatever he wants. I mean, dude, like poor Jace Howard is trying to defend. I mean, you had a bunch of random guys in there. Brandon Johns Jr. was also out. Musa Diabate had a couple fouls, so he was out. Just a really tough matchup for Michigan without Dickinson, and now we're wondering, is Dickinson out? Like, they were on the sidelines. Him and
Zeb
John
Jackson no longer with the team.
Yeah, Zeb Jackson not with the team as of right now. Dickinson and Brandon Johns are both on the bench, not masked up, so it doesn't appear to be a COVID thing. It was just kind of strange, man. I don't know, kind of weird how they're not playing. And now, there's been some talk that Dickinson might not be back for a little while, and I'm not really sure what's going on with that. It's kind of strange. But Michigan's now 7-7 and falling well below the 500 mark in the Big Ten, and there are no nights off. There are no nights off in the Big Ten. It could be a long season for the Michigan Hoopers, man.
The remainder of that schedule,
Brutal.
given the way the first 14 games have looked, the remainder of that schedule looks daunting, and that could be a pretty damn painful stretch. And you hope they get it figured out, but man, they're going to have to make significant improvements, I think, just to go 500 the remainder of the way, right?
I mean, I think finishing 500 would be, best case scenario for how they've looked.
Right.
Who are they beating in the Big Ten? That
there's no game you can point to where you could say Michigan decidedly has the advantage.
Nope. And that's crazy, because I thought this roster was as talented as it's ever been, and you just thought it was going to come together. I mean, Caleb Houston, man, for a top 5, top 10 recruit and looking, billed as a one and done guy, he can't even get a shot. He can't even get his own shot in college. There's no way that dude's going to the pros after, what he's put on tape. Yeah. Diabate's raw. He's coming along. Kobe Buffkin and Frankie Collins aren't even playing that much when I think they maybe could and should be playing more. Devontae Jones has not fit in well and has not played very well as a former conference player of the year. Dickinson, I feel like his motivation has been sorely lacking, and now he's kind of out. You're not getting anything from Zeb Jackson. It is a sad case right now in Ann Arbor with the basketball team. And as they sit right now, 7-7, when they had some I mean, I'm not going to call like UCF a tune-up game, but like those are non-conference games you're kind of expected to win coming off the season you came off last year, and they're 500 right now overall. I think finishing 500 literally is like it feels almost like a pipe dream at this point.
Yeah, I went through the schedule last night, and then I just don't. If they can finish 500, I think that would be, you count that as a win, and then you go into next season and you obviously try to improve. But again, you're right. You go down, look at each team, and tell me where Michigan has the advantage. And there's not one remaining game, at least that I can recall from memory, where I thought Michigan had the advantage.
Yeah. So, they play tomorrow. We talked to Juwan today, but again, I mean, there's not a whole lot to say right now. We're trying to figure out what's going on with Hunter Dickinson in the roster. You're trying to figure out exactly what's happening with Zeb Jackson, although he's never been a big part of the lineup. When you're down guys, you need bodies, man. And when he's not even with the program and you don't know what's going on with Dickinson and Brandon Johns, there's two of your bigger post players right there. That's why you've got Jace Howard guarding, 10-foot, 400-pound Kofi Coburn last game, and actually did a pretty damn good job.
Yeah.
I know there's been some people who have been pulling for him to get some more minutes. Look, more power to that kid, and you love having a glue guy and a hustle guy like that on your team. You're not winning at a high level if you've got Jace Howard playing a bunch of minutes at the 4 and the 5. You're just not, man. I mean, he's a non-factor on the offensive end, and you've got to score points in college basketball, and Michigan is struggling to do that. They're not shooting the ball well. They're turning it over too much. They're not getting a lot of leadership. It's a broken team right now. And I honestly didn't think, like, after last year, hearing about the culture and hearing about the environment that Juwan Howard created and how all those guys seem to just, like, run through walls for him, I cannot believe how it looks this year.
I remember specific conversations of you and I, like, you want to talk about slurping on Juwan Howard, about how he builds culture and buy-in and all of this stuff. And I'm not saying that that's not the case, but usually you can tell a lot by what the product looks like on the court or on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And based on what the product looks like, I mean, you could tell last year those guys were playing for each other. Like, you could see the emotion. Now, I get a lot of that comes from winning. Like, winning obviously is going to build positivity and more. Right. But at the end of the day, I don't know where the true leadership is on this team right now. And I don't know that this team knows where the true leadership is. But again, the remainder of the schedule looks scary. And you know how basketball is. You play a lot of games in a short amount of time, and you can make a run one way or the other. And this team could make, it could get bad. So Michigan fans, at least we can relive. We can watch the Michigan-Ohio State highlights. We can go back and watch Michigan versus Iowa. We can go shopping for Big Ten champion merchandise. We can do all that.
John, this is a good question, and it's one I found myself kind of asking and trying to take a deep dive into what's going on, because it looked at times last year, it just looked so good. And he's got a great staff around him with Phil Martelli, Howard Isley, Sadi Washington. Those guys are seasoned. They've been around a long time at a lot of different levels. And Juwan, I don't know if he's, a really good X's and O's guy. I know he's got a phenomenal personality. He recruits extremely well. Like we saw last year for a whole season and the year before that, he builds guys up. He gets the most out of them. He's got his players back. He's a player's coach. All of that stuff is great. But something's off this year. The rotations are weird. He's taken guys out at strange times. It looks like he's not really sure of himself in terms of how many minutes to give guys or how to ride the hot hand. Like Frankie Collins and Kobe Buffkin in that last game against Illinois both had a stretch of really good play, and then you come back from a media timeout and they're both on the bench. He even did it with Jace, with his own kid. And I haven't seen any sense of nepotism at all. Like, I mean, Jace Howard's been riding pine since he's been at Michigan. So, but like when someone's doing well and you're getting good minutes and good energy out of them, you leave them in. You just leave them in, and didn't see a lot of that in this last game against Illinois, taking guys out at weird times, putting strange lineups out there. I mean, like there was one stretch where I don't remember the 5 that was on the floor, but I remember watching it thinking like, there's nobody on the floor that can score right now for Michigan. No one. You can't have lineups in the game like that. And so that's been probably my biggest concern is the lineups and the rotations. And I know the roster has been weird as hell, because a bunch of guys have been out and they've had to miss games, and they, they rolled into Champaign with like 8 scholarship players available or something like that, whatever the number was. and that makes it hard. But some of those things are in-game things. Like Frankie Collins is playing, he's playing well. Leave him in. Why are you taking him out? Especially when you do have a weird lineup. It's not like you've got your All-American starting point guard over there who's rotting away on the bench. You don't have any bench. So just leave the guys in who are doing well. I don't know. There's been some things where I'm like, I don't know, man. He doesn't look like he gets it this year. How does that happen? I mean, Chris, you grew up playing basketball, man. It's been part of your life. Like, I'm not trying to say I know more than Juwan Howard by any stretch, but how can you watch the game as a head coach right there on the sideline and make some of those moves and sub guys in and out when it just doesn't seem to make any sense at all, especially when you've got a weird roster for that night and you're just trying to piece it together.
Well, I almost wonder if this is, and I know he's been at Michigan for a few years now, but I wonder if this is almost the lack of head coaching experience finally showing up, that where when you do get into this situation, you're not quite sure what to do to fix it because you've never had to address it before as a head coach. Like, clearly Juwan Howard is trying to do some things, but you're right. Some of the moves are puzzling. Why is he taking out Frankie when it looks like Frankie's, starting to get lathered up a little bit? I just think it might be the result of simply never being in this position before and not knowing how to get your team out of it. And so outside of that, you're right. I can't think of any other reason why it wouldn't be working. And I think CJ said it in the comments, like, and again, you played basketball growing up. I played basketball growing up. Anybody who's played basketball knows chemistry is important to any sport you play, but when you're on the court, I mean, that's almost like poetry in motion. Those five guys, I mean, you got to know each other really well, each other's games, and it clearly is not working right now. And it seemed like that was Juwan Howard's specialty. So I think that's why this season has come as such a surprise. It's not just that they were talented, but it's the total lack of chemistry and energy. Yeah. And you see it sometimes from Diabate, but
yeah, it's been hard to watch.
Where else? I mean, who's the emotional leader on the team?
I mean, it should be like an Eli Brooks, but that's not really his personality. He's not going to get in someone's ass or grab someone by the jersey or, chew on somebody for doing something wrong. He's a great leader by example. He does everything right. I mean, and I think in the past you've had some bigger personalities who could take on that other role and maybe even point to a guy like Eli and say, we need to be doing things like that. We need to look like Eli. We need to run through this drill the way Eli's run through this drill. I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to stand on a chair and start yelling at everybody in the locker room, even if that might be what's needed. That's just not, I mean, from the outside looking in, he's not that kind of guy. He doesn't do it on the court. I don't know if he does it in practice. It just doesn't seem to be, his approach, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's weird to think that with a guy like Eli Brooks and even a guy like Devontae Jones, I know he's new at Michigan, but you're talking about a fifth-year guy who's played a ton of college basketball, was the conference player of the year last year in the Sun Belt, and even a guy like Hunter Dickinson, who knows he's got to be the focal point, that you're not getting a little bit more out of those dudes in terms of leadership and pulling the team along in the right direction. I mean, there were some phenomenal guys that just did that, like it just oozed out of them last year with Isaiah Livers and Sean D. Brown. I mean, even Franz, who was young, but he just had a way about him. You just don't see that out of this year's team. And your point is valid, man. It's a lot easier to generate positive energy and flow in the right direction when you're winning games. Like, it's pretty hard to get in your teammates' ass and chew on them when you're down 15 on the road and you're about to be 7-7. At some point though, you've got to find the balance and try to get out of the doldrums, man. Because like you said, dude, when you go through the schedule and you look at the rest of the year, Michigan could easily find themselves on a 4, 5, 6, 7 game skid in a hurry because the Big Ten is good and Michigan just isn't right now. And I don't know. Some of the things I don't think can be fixed. They're not a very good shooting team. That's not going to change overnight. You can clean up the turnovers a little bit. You can certainly crank the effort up. You can fix rotations, I think, and try to find a better, a
See,
better 5 maybe, but
That,
I don't
that's
know.
the thing. That's the thing about basketball. If you've got a guard, if you've got a go-to guy that can score, if you've got a
Mhm.
scorer on your team, you can overcome a lot. Like you see it all the time. Teams that have or rosters that have a guy who can just go out and get 25, 30 a night because he's capable of that. When you don't have that on your team and you get down and everybody starts looking around for points, I mean, it's easy to get out pretty quickly. And so, yeah, I mean, to me, needing shooters and needing offense isn't something that can be, I mean, they're not going to start all of a sudden shooting a much better percentage, or you're not going to have a guy break out and all of a sudden start, coming out with 25 points a game. So until they can find somebody who's going to step up as not just a leader on and off the floor, but somebody who can put the ball in the hole, it's going to be a long, long stretch to finish out the year.
I'm getting a phone call. I'm going to have to decline that shit.
This
Is my
guy.
audio messed up now? Is it good?
TFG. You're good.
All right. Last thing we'll close on
Unreal.
this. We'll put our little music on and fade out here. Just got another text again, people that I converse with about this stuff. Certain circles are really, you're gonna roll your eyes again, dude. Certain circles are really high on Bill O'Brien. You're talking about a former NFL coach of the year, developed Deshaun Watson at Houston, won 9 games at Penn State with about 40 scholarship guys on the roster, and now has the Alabama stamp of approval as their OC. Might have a connection with Mike Elston. So that I mean, dude, I don't know. Some people seem to like the Bill O'Brien idea. I don't know why, but I don't. I don't even know if I have a real tangible reason why, but I really don't like it.
I just said it's the face for me. I'm basing everything on that. It's nothing personal. There's just some faces I like as a coach, a head coach, more than other faces.
He's got a big chin dimple. I don't know how you feel about chin dimples.
Got the chin. Well, they're okay on some. Are you rocking the dimple?
Yeah, I got one. It's harder to see when I'm shaved, when I'm shorn.
Past tense. It's the past tense for shave, shorn.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Strong word. It's one of my
Wow.
favorite words. I use it quite often.
Well, obviously, I would never know. I wouldn't know.
Freshly shorn balls, dude. That's
freshly
the best
shorn.
Way. Yeah.
Wow.
Shorn. I mean, we just took a turn right there down the stretch. We got about 30 seconds.
When you break out shorn, where else do you go from that?
If you guys out there aren't using the word shorn in your daily language, do it.
You're welcome.
You'll get reactions like you just got from Chris. It's a conversation piece, if nothing else. Freshly shorn, harder to see the chin dimple, but it is there. Did you see the comment earlier? Somebody said Brandon out here with no facial hair looks crazy.
No,
somebody said that.
Could you shave the goat?
I shave everything off and then I let it grow for like a week or whatever. Then I shave it off again. I mean, that's just how I do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to shave every day, and I can't really grow like an actual beard. So
I'm more used to you clean shaven.
I do the full stubble. I let it grow in pretty good. Sometimes I'll shave off the neck and leave up here for an extra couple of days. But for the most part, this is kind of what I look like. I was like, damn, is it really that weird that I don't have facial hair? I didn't think so, but anyway. I don't know, man.
You look good.
What are we going to talk about on Wednesday? I'm guessing it's going to be Jim Harbaugh and the Raiders, maybe.
Harbaugh.
We'll see. Hope that show was satisfactory for everybody.
That's a great question.
We like to do things.
That's a great question.
We like to do things clean and shorn around here. You really have never heard the word shorn?
No, I have not. I've never been around anybody who's used it. I'll be honest, if somebody, you've used it and you could see how it made me feel. So, you know what? And if somebody did use it around me, I didn't know that that's what they were saying. I probably just smiled and nodded.
Here it is. It's actually the past tense of the word shear, not shave.
Okay, so that's right.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I used it correctly. It's typically reserved for sheep. Like a freshly shorn sheep, but
just another Harbaugh apologist.
Use it anywhere there's hair. So there you go.
Freshly shorn body.
I kind of want to make that a drop. What I just said right there. I imagine you could use it anywhere there's hair.
Anywhere
there's hair. Good Lord, I'm leaving, dude. There's a playoff game on right now, and I want to watch it. And you know what, dude? I think I didn't even get to make a bet because we ran too long. When's kickoff for that game?
I have no. I mean, it's already.
Is it on right now?
Probably.
8:19. I got like 4 minutes to put a bet in. Take care, everybody. We'll be back probably on Wednesday. We still haven't amended our schedule because, well, there's a lot to talk about. So take care. We'll be back. See ya.